Hey, A&Pers, this is Dr. Jones checking in. This is A&P 1, Lecture Test 3, Video 8 on page 9. Okay, so we're talking about exercise and nutrition on their effect on bones. So, when the bone is stressed, the crystals give off a small electric field, filling in the blanks, electrical field, which attracts osteoblasts. And this explains how bone is laid down along lines of stress. Heavily stressed, bones become thicker and stronger, while unstressed bones become thin and brittle. How long does it take to lose a third of your bone mass due to inactivity? A few weeks, which is terrifying. So they used to put people on bed rest for anything. Oh, you stubbed your big toe, go on bed rest for a week. And now they don't put you on bed rest for anything unless like the cerclages are not holding the baby in. It's like one of the few reasons they prescribe bed rest now. I mean, you get your knee redone, and you wake up with your knee in a machine and it's moving constantly. So, I mean, there's no bed rest. Because we've learned how incredibly quickly your bone mass just disappears, poof, when you're not using it. So bone is laid down along lines of stress, and when the stress disappears, the bone disappears. A third in a few weeks. Okay. So, nutrition. Nutrition for bones. Okay, so each of these blue ones is a bullet on your page. Okay, hormonal nutrition. So first is the minerals. This is all the first bullet. Calcium and phosphate. Nope. Wait, what? Okay. Calcium and phosphate salts, along with magnesium, fluoride, iron, and manganese. So magnesium is Mg, and manganese is Mn. I think so. Now that looks like Minnesota. It doesn't look like manganese. Okay. Second bullet is a hormone, calcitriol. And to make calcitriol, you need vitamin D3, which is cholecalciferol. Cholecalciferol is the term for vitamin D3. So, and you make vitamin D3 in your skin in the presence of sunlight. We covered this for lecture test 2. And that is used to make calcitriol, which is a hormone that allows your body to absorb the calcium and phosphorus from your food. Third bullet, vitamin C. Vitamin C is required for collagen synthesis. Why do you need collagen synthesis for bone strength? That's right, the osteoid is collagen, and the collagen is a third of the bone matrix. So without vitamin C, which is required for collagen synthesis, you will not make the osteoid to calcify. Okay, so when you don't have enough vitamin C, a vitamin C deficiency is called scurvy. And it was common amongst sailors, so that's why these scurvy beasts is a pirate insult, because lots of sailors died of scurvy. So a vitamin C deficiency shows up first with bleeding gums, which now we call gingivitis. And if it continues, then it's a long, slow, painful, bloody death where you're bleeding from multiple orifices. So not pleasant. So it was, I believe, Captain Cook who discovered that melaleuca leaves, tea tree, that's why it's called tea tree, because you make a tea of the tree leaves. So you put the melaleuca leaves in water and make a tea of it, and it has vitamin C in the tea. So that's why it's tea tree oil, because it's oil from Melaleuca plant. And they used that to make tea so that their sailors didn't die of scurvy. And in fact, that was part of why the British Navy was the supreme naval force for so long, was because they sent on board with their navy barrels and barrels and barrels of limes. And every sailor had to eat a lime every day. In fact, that's why the British sailors are commonly called limeys, because they ate limes. And that's part of how the British Navy was superior, because their people weren't all dying of scurvy on long voyages. So fresh fruits and vegetables are really important. It's like vitamins and minerals and nutrients. Oh my. Very important. All right, so that's vitamin C and scurvy beasts and limeys and Captain Cook and tea tree oil. Yeah, that was all of it. All right, fourth bullet. There's like 6 bullets and my okay, wrong booklet. Okay, fourth bullet. More vitamins. Vitamins A and K and B12 are required for osteoblast activity and protein synthesis. Now, I don't remember us having this conversation, so we are going to have this conversation briefly. Vitamins A, D, E, and K are your fat-soluble vitamins. So hydrophobic. When you eat, B12 is an energy vitamin. It's found in meat. And if you overdose on vitamin B, any of the B's or C's, if you megadose on them, they're water soluble, so they just, you pee them out. You pee out the excess that you don't need. But the fat-soluble vitamins aren't water-soluble, they're fat-soluble, so they get stored in your fat cells. And so A, D, E, and K are vitamins that you can get too much of. You can overdose on the fat-soluble vitamins. So we don't megadose fat-soluble vitamins. If you are deficient in vitamin D and the doctor has prescribed megadoses of D, then you take the megadoses of vitamin D, and the doctor or physician's assistant or nurse practitioner or whomever checks your blood routinely, so that once you no longer have a vitamin D deficiency, you quit taking the megadoses of vitamin D and start taking just a regular basic dose of vitamin D, so that you're not overdosing. So the fat-soluble vitamins are vitamins that we do not megadose on without routine blood tests to make sure that we're not poisoning ourselves. I wouldn't megadose on the water-soluble vitamins, because while you pee out the excess, it's not entirely proven that they don't do damage on the way out. So the amount of vitamin C in an orange or in orange juice or in strawberries or dark green leafies is a balanced amount with other nutrition. So it's not like, you know, those little capsules of megadoses. Okay. So don't megadose on fat-soluble vitamins. Especially if you're pregnant, your baby needs vitamin A to properly make eyeballs that see, but overdoses of vitamin A make it where baby's eyes can't see. So you need a certain amount of vitamin A, but not too much vitamin A, and it's a thing. So, okay. The next bullet is growth hormone and thyroxine. Thyroxine is T3, which is one of the thyroid hormones. Is it T3 or T4? Oh, crap. Brain fart. Okay, and so those help to maintain the growth plates in kids. And then we have sex hormones. Sex hormones are estrogens and androgens that stimulate osteoblasts. And we talked about puberty. You have an increase in sex hormones that increase the rate of skeletal growth, causing the epiphyseal plates to narrow. We've said all of this, and leads to skeletal maturity, which again you measure with that right hand x-ray. If only all forms of maturity were so easy to measure. Let's see, you're at a class 1 in this way and a class 5 in that. Yeah. So menopause, we're still on that same bullet, is a decrease in sex hormones, which decreases the rate of skeletal growth and leads to osteopenia in women. Menopause happens a decade or 3 earlier in women than andropause happens in men. So women are at a much higher rate of osteopenia and also osteoporosis than men are. Plus, when you're pregnant, baby takes the calcium that they need. And if you're not getting enough calcium in your diet or you're not taking your prenatal vitamins, then they're just going to suck all the calcium out of your bones for their bones. And so for those 2 reasons, women tend to have higher rates of osteopenia and osteoporosis. We'll talk about that later, but before this test. Okay, and last bullet, calcitonin from the thyroid gland and parathyroid hormone from the parathyroid gland are important in the control of calcium and phosphate levels. Okay, and what percentage of the body's calcium? Okay, so here's gigantism. In gigantism, it's usually an issue with pituitary gland where there's too much growth hormone being made. Only if this happens before the growth plates close. Then they keep making cartilage until they're extremely tall. And this is very hard on hearts. People who are this tall do not live long. Like 35 is a long time for someone that tall to live because humans just haven't evolved for that much bulk. Our hearts aren't up for it, literally. And so now when someone zips up that tall that quickly, they'll scan their pituitary gland. If there is a tumor, they'll remove it or whatever they need to do, so that they don't get much more than, any taller than they would normally be. Okay. And that's slightly different than Marfan syndrome. And Marfan syndrome is a connective tissue disorder where they're making extra cartilage. And so in Marfan's, the fingers are much longer, and usually they'll go down past the wrist into the wrist area, which isn't a problem, except the connective tissues of the heart are affected, and so it does indicate a slightly shorter lifespan because of the heart issues, but not like these extreme cases of gigantism. Now, if you have a pituitary tumor pumping out growth hormone after the growth plates have closed, that causes acromegaly, and acromegaly will cause the hands and the feet and the bones of the face to keep growing. And a lot of these people are in Hollywood because they've got such distinctive faces. You've seen a number of them as Bond villains or, just general bad guys, and with a really pronounced brow ridge and cheekbones. And you look up acromegaly and you're familiar with those actors. So. Okay, so finishing the page then. What percentage of the body's calcium is stored in the bones? So here the bone contains 99% of the body's calcium, and these percentages of its other elements that we're less concerned with. But here's the composition of the bone. Of the bone, what percent is calcium? 39% of the bone is calcium. And why is calcium homeostasis so important? And I've touched on this in previous videos. If your blood calcium levels are way too low, then your diaphragm will seize up and you will quit breathing. Or because you need extracellular calcium to enter the heart cells for them to beat, when your blood calcium is too low, your heart quits beating. So you either, I'm not sure what happens first, if you quit breathing first or your heart quits beating first, but it doesn't really matter. They're both equally bad. So, and high blood calcium causes issues, but it's not like life-threatening issues. I think there's a thing in the book on that, so you can read it. Okay, and next we will talk about calcium homeostasis in the next video. This has been, let's check. I gotta find my post-it. This has been ANP1 lecture test 3. And this was, this was video 8 on page 9. So next will be video 9 on Noteset page 10, and we will talk about calcium homeostasis, and I'm writing it down now, which means I'll be confused later. But then when I go to type these videos into YouTube, I'll have the information, so I'm good with that. So thank you as always for tuning in. It's good to virtually see you here. Keep on keeping on. You can do it. Okay. Dr. J out.